So good afternoon, everybody. Want to welcome you to the data center facility track. Thanks for being here. We're going to just do a quick intro of what data center facility represents as part of the OCP. We've got most of, if not all of our leadership here, so at the end of this, we'll give everybody a minute or two to add a few points of their own. But I think to start off, we've all been kind of reflecting on, what we heard yesterday, what's new, what's different, what's exciting. And for me, I had a couple of takeaways. One of the things that came up yesterday was that by 2025, the expectation is that revenue from OCP hardware, OCP recognized hardware, will flip from the majority being hyperscale to the majority being non-hyperscalers. So having Target here to talk about why they're going open source to speed deployment and meet their growth expectations on the network, on the compute, on the storage, that's kind of interesting. That kind of starts to make it real for more people. And if you were here for the keynotes, IT Renew and Schneider Electric combined on an edge computing use case that's very interesting. So I think those kinds of things, as we start to see, this isn't just maybe a hyperscale play anymore, that it's starting to find a little more mainstream application was interesting to me. Another thing is we're hearing hardware and software aggregation. You don't hear a lot of people talking about a hardware solution that isn't tied to some type of software. So there's a lot going on there, and that's being done because today's applications require management, security, and performance that traditional methods haven't been given us. So we're starting to see aggregation there. And then finally, it's not really new, but sustainability has always been a tenet of the OCP. But if the prediction is to come true that they shared yesterday, that OCP revenue is expected to roughly triple by 2025, I think sustainability is going to be a big driver of that. So in that sense, I think OCP and OCP solutions are a bit ahead of the curve. Just to give you a sense for where, Just to give you a sense for where data center facility falls within the 10 working projects of OCP. We're kind of a linchpin. You can't really build the kind of solution that runs today's IT without putting it in a house somewhere. It's got to go in a data center at some point. So we are, the server requirements dictate the facility to a large extent, which could be a cooling solution. And we've got an advanced cooling function that currently has a parallel track running with the rack and power group because there's so much emphasis on cooling. And so we're very closely linked to the rack and power group. And if you look across to telco, there's an edge icon there. And so, that's eventually going to have some play in the data center facility as well. So we kind of bring a lot of things together. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on here. And to just kind of share who the leadership is. My name's Brett Lehman. I didn't introduce myself. I co-chair this project with Madhu Iyengar from Google. I kind of inherited this position from Rob Coyle, whose picture you'll see on the next slide. Rob was co-chair of this until earlier this year. We've kind of put on these slides where we're located and what our contact info is to try and encourage you to reach out to us. If you're in our neighborhood, look us up, give us a call, send us an email. Maybe we can get together and talk OCP. Bob Oliver, the leader of our modular data center sub-project, is not here today, nor are Joey and John on the operational technology security side. But John Minash is here as part of the advanced cooling facility, which is led by Don Mitchell. And then we got Rob Coyle and Mark Danzy heading up the OCP Ready sub-project. Just a couple of points about Don and Rob. These guys are tremendous ambassadors for OCP, presenting at 7x24, Data Center World. Very present on LinkedIn. You'll see them being really good ambassadors of OCP. And just kind of a tip of the hat to Rob, if you were in the keynotes yesterday, he received a 2021 Volunteer Leadership Award. So, Rob, congrats on that. So the first one, the first sub project I was going to talk about is modular data center. The objective here is, to collaborate on designs for modular solutions that are optimized for OCP hardware. And you can read here what some of the highlights are. There are guidelines in development for deploying modular data centers. I come from a company that has been doing modular solutions for a long time, and we're finding you don't really have to sell modular anymore versus stick-built. The advantages of modular construction are very well documented. But just the same, there is some work going on there to help educate people who maybe aren't up to speed on that what the advantages, the benefits, and the drawbacks even of modular versus stick-built, just to get the conversation out there. To give you a sense for something that's a little bit more real, I mean, that's all on paper, right? When Rob was co-leader of this project, he got a 90 kW with Schneider Electric, got an OCP acceptance accreditation on a 90 kilowatt modular all-in-one data center. And Rob and I were talking about that this summer around a 7x24 presentation and saying, well, what if we made this, went all in on OCP on a solution like this, and we packed the density as dense as it could get, and we used an alternate cooling solution, and we didn't have a traditional UPS because in OCP the UPS is in the rack. And just quick numbers on paper, we could more or less triple the density of that in about a 25% less footprint. So in this space, there's a lot of work that could be done to really optimize the facility, the modular facility for OCP. In operational technology security, to me, the most important thing here is my background's with IBM and resiliency services, and I heard about a lot of cyber breaches, data breaches in that role, and one of the most damaging was one where the culprits actually got into the production data center and compromised, personal information by first going into the operational technology piece of it. They went into the building management system. There was not good protection between the IT and the OT networks, and that gave them a path into, the crown jewels of the client. And so that poses one of the biggest risks in the industrial control space today is security around the OT side. So these guys are doing a lot of things to shore that up. And there's a presentation later on this afternoon on the Redfish protocol that applies directly to this. In advanced cooling, as I mentioned, there's a lot of, just go out on the expo floor, you'll see a dual phase immersion cooling solution, a single phase. There are all kinds of different cooling solutions being driven by the densities that you can achieve with OCP. So a couple of the big highlights for ACS or ACF this year were guidelines for standardizing the connection of liquid cooling or liquid cooled IT into cooling loops. So if you go to the Rittal booth out there, you've got a pumped refrigerant or a liquid cooled direct to chip solution. And also OCP guidance reference designs for cooling loops in data centers. One of the work streams I think that you guys have planned for next year is to investigate heat reuse from the data center. And then this is the final sub-project of the four, probably promotes the most discussion across all of our four sub-projects. You'll see there's OCP-ready objectives on all the other sub-projects. OCP Ready is just allows facilities to put a plaque in their lobby or a logo on their website to say they're OCP certified. We have 11 facilities around the world comprising almost 400,000 square feet and 80 megawatts of OCP ready data center at fairly low PUEs, which will go down as we move into the future. There's also work around. There was work done this year on So the assessment involved, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but one of the criteria for OCP Ready was to have hot aisle, cold aisle containment. And so if you install rack heat exchangers that remove all the heat from the solution, why do you need hot aisle, cold aisle? Does that mean now that type of a provider couldn't be OCP ready? So there were some changes made, and the assessment process for that is really simple and straightforward. It's a checklist and a spreadsheet, and and we look forward to a lot of growth in the OCP-ready facilities. Focusing on 2022, I tried to put an objective up here for each of the 4 subgroups. Those OCP-ready guidelines for modular data center, I know, are a very big, a big lift for that team. They plan to do that in early 2022. Continuing to mitigate the security risks associated with operational technology networks around the data center. I mentioned the heat reuse, and then growing that the visibility to and the enrollment in the OCP ready. From a general standpoint, it's funny to hear everybody in the last day talking about sustainability, but we kind of already had that discussion going, trying to figure out what are we going to do as a group with sustainability moving forward. And we feel like, thanks to Rob and Don with getting us visibility in some of these other events, that we might look at some potential partnerships. OCP came to us and said, might make sense to partner with a 7x24 or Data Center Dynamics to have an OCP track at some point, or just something to get more visibility to OCP, because when Target's in here and we have use cases at the edge, that's starting to get very real, and I think more people would benefit from knowing that. I built this slide before the keynotes yesterday. It just kind of discusses, I kind of wanted to show, well, what's the OCP impact on the market today? And I thought about modular, and I thought about eliminating waste in a factory environment when you build a modular solution, and so that cuts costs. It's easier on the site. It's easier to find manpower, so it's more efficient. They're more sustainable. And then, yeah, I would encourage everybody. I couldn't sleep this morning. I'm from the East Coast. I got up and I watched the keynotes, or significant parts of the keynotes, again today. There's a lot to take away around how OCP is impacting the market today. And so, kind of a call to action for you. We don't have a big crowd, but if this interests you in the least, please, reach out to either our sub-project leads or Madhu and myself. Get involved. Each one of these, there are 2 slides here that I'm sure will be made. How'd that happen? I'm sorry. So the 2 slides have links to and times for when these subgroups meet. Now, the links all look exactly the same. They say go to meeting. I've checked them all. They all have unique URLs that will direct you to those calls. If you're interested, please reach out to the leadership, and please feel free to join those calls. Before I get into the afternoon's agenda, we got Rob, Madhu, John Minash. Anybody want to say anything? Want to augment what we've...
No, so thank you, Brett. That was really interesting and well described. I think in addition to sustainability and heat reuse, we're also interested in soliciting people to participate in data center power. We haven't written something up, but that's an important area that we think we want some more contribution and involvement in. So that's the only thing I'd like to add. Rob?
Thanks, Madhu. And thanks, Brett. I've seen a lot of change in a really short period of time in data center facilities. The community really drives it. So if there's something that you don't feel is being addressed, or you think there's an opportunity around facilities, please join a call, please get involved. Things happen very quickly. A lot of these things that Brett has talked about, like the OTS group, was non-existent a year ago. And there's a need out there, and it's directly related to the facilities. And as Brett put, a lot of things converge in the facility. And so, please bring it to our attention, or if there's something we're already working on you're interested in, please join us.
And if I'm going to put out one request, it's the ACF group. Our charter is to really figure out and standardize the connection from the building to these technologies. And we'd like to get some reference designs. So we have put some up. But if you are in possession of or have a design for something that you'd like to share into the public domain, we'd love to have your reference design, and we can scrub it and make it anonymous, so you don't have to give anything away. We can take just about anything. We'd like Revit, because we'd like to make those files available to users that want to download them as a starting point. But if you have it and you want to share, or if you just want to contribute on the calls, mine is on Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And thank you. So.
Thanks a lot, John. Do we have any questions? Does anybody have, I mean, I don't think our first presentation starts for about another 8 or 9 minutes. Do we have any questions? Is there anything we can tell you that we haven't shared? Okay. So this is today's agenda. Rob and Carl Raba will be up in a minute to talk about those guidelines for modular data centers that we were just talking about. We've also got presentations on, preparing Meta for the growing power demand from a thermal perspective. I mentioned Redfish earlier, hyperscale data center architecture. And in data center lifecycle management, the integrator qualification program, and harmonic emissions. So those will be the topics today, roughly every 30 minutes. Hope you all enjoy it.